All right, so I'll do an introduction line, Mark, and then
Yeah.
you can press the intro button.
It's not there yet. Okay. We are live on Facebook.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. I realize now that I forgot to write down what I actually wanted to say for this intro, much like how they forgot to write down the script for this movie. We watched Love and Dynamite, which means it's time for another Portland at the Movies.
Bunny. Hop like a bunny, I'll shoot your ass in the knee! Hop like a bunny!
Hello and welcome to another remote episode of Portland at the Movies. My name is Todd Workhoven, recording down in Aurora, Oregon, which was featured for 3 seconds at the beginning of Harvest of Fear. And coming to us from up north is Brian the Unipiper Kid. How are you, Brian?
I'm hopping like a bunny.
Nice. And of course, Mark Middleton working hard to get all this technology wrangled. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing fine. As soon as we went live, our live stream crashed and we brought it back up before the end of the clip. So those
nice.
people on Facebook missed about 10, 15 seconds.
Oh, well, they
It's all
are
good.
poor for it. This month, we have a movie called Love and Dynamite. It is a movie directed and written by Stephen Miller, who, if you listen to last month's episode of Portland at the Movies, you will remember was the director of Back Time, a movie we all quite enjoyed. And so we decided to go through his filmography of 3 movies and do Love and Dynamite, which I'm holding here on VHS, which was the copy we were able to watch. The movie stars Dan Haggerty of Grizzly Adams fame, which I realized I never watched, and I always get that confused with the guy from Gentle Ben who has that reaction gif of like the loving, approving father.
Yeah, Gentle Ben and Grizzly Adams were contemporaries, and they both had grizzly bears named Ben on their show.
Oh, did they?
Yes, I watched them both.
Were they extant stories before that,
Nope.
or was one like a
No, it was.
quick? We need to also have a show.
That's what I think. They were just
Okay.
They lived in the Everglades and had a grizzly bear, like you do. And so I think they were trying to get the
Tiger King,
the Flipper / Grizzly Adams mesh.
This 70s show where every co-star had to be a wild animal.
Did you catch how they had to work in the one line referencing Grizzly Adams in this movie?
Yes, he was big. It was grizzly. So who wants to set up this movie? Because I don't.
I don't.
I have a
either.
question.
Okay.
Could you read the first sentence from the description of the movie on the back of your VHS tape?
Yeah, I'll just actually read the whole thing because it's not very long. So it says, in the action comedy Love and Dynamite, Dan Grizzly Adams Haggerty plays Burl Woods, a divorced husband, loving father, and outraged bomb builder. When his sexy daughter runs away from home, pursued by a sleazy private detective, Burl hires ex-cop Hugh Kelso and his shy teenage son, Zach, to find and protect her. Zach falls for the girl while Burl plots his revenge on his ex-wife. This explosive blend of comedy, mystery, and romance turns family squabbles into citywide chaos. Wow, that is not at all what I figured this movie was about.
That is what I think they were going for in making this
Right.
movie, but failed spectacularly.
Right. And like I mentioned at the beginning, there was a framework, I think, for this movie, but they forgot to write out a script and I actually had time this past week to contact David Walker, who of course shows up in the final scene of this movie, to ask his memories. So maybe I'll get to the first little tidbits of his right now. So let me see here. He's actually never, I sent him a link to the movie and he said, oh man, I never saw this movie all the way through. And I tried, but I couldn't even make it all the way through. So his scene, which he plays the preacher at a funeral, His scene was shot in Vancouver, close to Battleground. The director asked me to do the scene and write my own dialogue. And so he just kind of
Wow.
messed around with some of his what he was kind of whatever came to mind. He was 20 or 21 when this was made. His friend JR was one of the leads. So which one was he? He also showed up in Fatal Revenge.
Yes. So his friend JR plays Zach in this movie, the main son.
Really?
Yes,
Interesting.
and
Oh, wow.
yes, and in Fatal Revenge, he played one of the goons of the main henchman.
You're right. Now I totally remember that. Oh, wow. So yeah, his friend JR was lead Zach, and he got this performance based on Stephen Miller's last movie, our first movie, Visions, which is the one movie we have not watched yet. David said, if I remember this correctly, most of the scenes were improvised. They shot much of the movie on video, but this was back in the day that video, they wanted to process it so that it looked more like film. And David said, but something went wrong. So I don't know if that process was ever done. He said it's interesting to see the names of the people in the critics in the credits because a lot of people are no longer in the business, but some have actually moved up, like David Kress, who I did not look into. So anyway, Tom Shaw's cameras were used for some of it. And David Walker did mention a point that I thought too when I watched his scene. I was like, this does not sound like David Walker. Like, and I know he's doing like a character and a different character than him, and it's 30 years ago, but I was like, that just doesn't sound like David. And I'm like, oh, whatever. It's just, I don't know David. Like, it's not like he's like a close personal friend or whatever. But David said too that when he watched his thing, he watched it. He says it sounds so different than my voice, and he's not sure what they did. So I don't know if they ended up dubbing his voice. He didn't think so. But
Wow.
yeah, it was very weird. And I was like, that doesn't sound like David, but I don't know him enough to have said that. But it's funny he said that.
His scene in this movie is just so different from every other character.
It's
And I'm
alive.
wondering how much direction they gave him to go in that direction with what he did with that character.
None. He was just doing all that stuff. I think he was working on some stand-up material back then, and that was just kind of what, because he was doing it a lot of like Red Fox and a lot of James Brown. He was throwing references in and just nonsense. So I think that's basically the direction everyone got was, we'll kind of make it up as we go.
Go your
And
own
I-
direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, which, I mean, to be fair to the actors in this movie, I thought they all did a pretty fine job.
So to tell the audience, what David Walker ended up doing, here's the scene taking place at a funeral, and it's an entirely, white crowd at this funeral. And then David Walker shows up and starts spouting off about the white devil judicial system. And
We should play. Mark, do you have any clips
I
that you can
don't.
queue up?
I
Can you
don't.
hear my computer if I do it?
Probably we can try.
Let me see. Hold on here. Can you hear that?
no.
No. Okay. Well, anyway, I might drop some in there, but yeah, he's just totally James Browning up this funeral at the end, which was pretty great.
And it's amazing because I feel like a couple of times throughout this movie, just when you were starting to like doze off, there would be a scene out of left field to just wake you up. And that's entirely what David Walker does.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like
it was
or
pretty
like
great.
the dream sequence where suddenly suddenly Zach is dressed in a giant milk carton and the female lead is dressed like Maria from Sound of Music, but shooting guns at him.
Rocket launchers.
That did legitimately make me laugh because we cut to this dream sequence and Zach, the main character, is dressed up as a giant milk carton. I couldn't quite figure that out. Well, then it's all cute. But then Dana pulls out a gun and starts chasing him, and it's funny. And then it's just a wide shot where she chases him in the milk costume all the way across, and then they come from the other way, and she's in a tank shooting a gun. And then it escalates once more where she's running at him with a bazooka and like blows him up. That made me laugh. I admit it.
It very much reminded me of the scene from his next film that we watched last month, Back Time, when they were just suddenly in the gorge running around and playing.
Oh, right. He does love his nature montages. But there were some I legitimately funny moments in it, and I just kept thinking like it was fairly clear that people were kind of improvising and riffing off each other, and if this movie needs Topher Grace to come in and do a phantom edit of this, because this would make like a really funny like 25-minute short film.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I felt like the actors were hung out to dry. Like they were just told to like, keep riffing, keep riffing, keep riffing. And so you do, thinking that they'll cut around, make it snappy, make it look.
No. When they were doing this, the stakeout and the son and father, PI team are in a car wait, you can just tell that they were just stuck in a car and all right, make small talk. And
Yeah.
And they
it was,
did.
The small talk was like super traumatic though, because it's the father and the son, and the son's like, oh, so you never loved me and blame everything on me? And the dad's like, well, to be fair, I also blame your mom for everything. And the kid's like, what? And he's like, for everything. Well, for what, Dad? Well, for anything. It doesn't matter. I just blame you guys. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what are we gleaning from this conversation? It's terrifying. I did find, it is worth mentioning too that the father, so I guess, Brian, do you want to set up this movie? I guess we never got to that point.
No. Okay, so the setup is that we have our main protagonist, who I do not know his name, but easily enough, he only has one arm, so we can just call him the one arm.
Hugh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hugh is his name.
Okay.
Hugh the one arm. So it's actually starts. I should back up. It starts with Jr. Playing the son Zach, and he's writing a story. As in, maybe he's writing the script for the movie that we're actually watching.
Well, he
it
didn't
has
do
a
that
very.
because this movie had no script.
I think what they were going for was the Ferris Bueller setup.
Okay. Yeah,
where
I
he's
wasn't
giving-
sure. I wasn't sure if that setup of him at the typewriter saying like, this story is about my dad and my dad's on a stakeout. I didn't know if that was supposed to be like, oh, this whole thing is fake, or if that's his therapeutic thing of like turning a traumatic situation, and art therapy or whatever. So I couldn't quite figure out what we were supposed to believe there.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be that he is telling the entire story like after it has all taken place. And he's typing it into a computer, and it cuts back to the moment where his father lost his arm when he was a police officer, and he was on a case at the car wash at 82nd and Gleason.
Oh, is that where that was?
Yep.
Specifically
I
call
missed it.
out.
Yeah, he does, and that is a real car wash, and they shot it at that real car wash.
Is that car wash still there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a washman at 82nd and Gleason.
That's funny.
At the end of the movie, in the credits, they give a special thanks to Hannah Car Wash. And I did a little research and found out that Hannah was this guy, the last name of a fellow who owned a car wash empire in Portland. And he designed all of the equipment that he would then sell to other people to install into their car washes.
Oh,
and
wow.
Later in his life, he went on to help start the Washman car wash empire here in Portland.
Wow. So I wonder if his dynasty was toppled by the Katie family of Katie Car Wash. Because, Mark, actually, you and I used to do marketing with them. But I think Katie Car Wash is only in a certain area. And, like, there's a big turf war, I think, between the car wash dynasties. So maybe someday someone will make a movie about that.
Didn't we make an ad once that they pronounced it wrong, like Caddy Car Wash?
Caddy Car Wash. And I had to go back and tell them to redo it. That was a fun day.
Client freaked out, as they should.
Anyway,
so Yes. So Hugh, the one-armed Hugh, but at this he has two arms at this point,
Right.
and he's on this case, and he comes up upon a car. This is at night, and he gets sucked into the car through the window somehow.
Somehow.
Am I remembering that
Yeah,
correctly?
or into the trunk. Well, not into the trunk, I guess, because he ends up
No.
inside the car. But yeah, it's like he's looking in the window, and somebody pushes the button to turn the car wash on, and that sucks him into the car. So maybe we're led to believe he's bumped in by one of the pieces of machinery.
Yeah. So then he rides through the car wash, and when he comes, motorcycle gang with guns pointed at him, and they just go Bonnie and Clyde on him. But somehow he survives and loses an arm.
Well, the people who attack him, like the lady is gonna shoot him at like point blank or whatever, but then she chooses not to and just like rides away. And then we never hear from her again. I don't know who she was or how that ties to the story, other than he loses his arm.
But what I loved is she kind of looked punk a little, maybe a leather jacket on a motorcycle. And then they describe later when he is reliving this moment, Hugh is calling them yuppies on motorcycles. And I
Oh, I
don't
missed
think,
that.
yeah, the yuppies on the motorcycles. And I just don't think the word means what he thought it meant.
It did look like they were just like right out of The Outsiders or whatever, or Red Dawn. That's funny. But yeah, it is worth noting too that Portland has an interesting track record now of motion pictures that have lead stars who have some sort of disability. We've had Marlee Matlin in her several movies, who is hearing impaired, Defila as well. Now we have this one where I'm glad. At first, I thought they were gonna try to like do the arm tied behind the back one-armed man, but this seemed to be just legitimately a man with one arm who I think was great in the role, and so that's an interesting niche that Portland is carving out.
Yeah, and we also have He Won't Get Far on Foot with Joaquin
Oh, that's right.
Phoenix
That's right.
in the wheelchair.
That's right. Wow, what a legacy we're leaving that we're finding here. I did laugh. So at the very beginning, we're introduced to this family. Like I said, the father is the one-armed man, the kid, and then the wife, and it's kind of showing that the dad has been depressed since he lost his arm the year before and is trying to get back on his feet. And they're all at breakfast, and the mom and the son are trying to encourage the dad, just get back out there and here's the wanted ads, get a job. And the dad's like, well, look how much I've already come this year. And he picks up 3 oranges, and he's getting ready to show them that he's gonna juggle these oranges, and he takes his time, and he's like setting up and like getting his arms ready, and then tosses the three oranges in the air, and they just go dunk, dunk, dunk right on the table, which I thought was so funny and so well done. And that's why it's like these 4 actors, like, we're doing good things.
Right.
It just needs to be like carved out. It's like when they asked Da Vinci how did he carves out of Mars. He's like, well, you just carve the parts that aren't the elephant, or whatever that old quote was. These guys
The David.
needed someone to carve the parts out that weren't comedy.
That scene cracked me up to the next at home, and there's a package arrives on the doorstep, and JR and Hugh discover inside it's $1,000 cash and a photograph of a young woman. And knowing that Hugh's background was in the police force and he worked on a lot of missing children cases, he is assuming that somebody has left this money to hire him and find this girl. So with nothing better to do, the two of them, father and son, hit the town and start asking around, and then go on this wacky adventure looking for this missing girl. And that's the premise for most of the rest of the movie. But we eventually learn that the girl is on the lam, sort of, because her father is likes to build bombs, and his father is trying to kill her mother, and they are currently divorced, and the mother is soon to marry her lawyer for the sole purpose of stealing the money that is due to the girl when she turns 18.
Oh, what? Really?
I
didn't
didn't
catch
get
any
that.
of that.
I didn't catch that either.
I watched this movie twice.
I did too. And I don't know. You have to read between the lines a little bit.
Yes.
Read between the improv. Did either of you recognize there's a comic book store in one scene? Did either of you recognize that?
I did not recognize it,
Okay,
but I did figure out where it was.
Oh,
Todd scrambles.
I know. Where is that at?
It was a comic book store called Apache Books.
Okay.
And they're no longer around, but they were at 36th and Division.
Okay.
And they were also given a shout out in the credits. And that's
Okay.
how I was
I
able
did
to
notice
find
I haven't re-looked at the end credits. The end credits, by the way, they run twice at the end of this movie, not as a mistake. They run the full credits. There's a little Marvel Cinematic Universe post credits something or other, and then they play the full credits again, which is insane. And still this movie is like barely 80 minutes long.
I've never seen anything like that in another movie. Like that is a cinematic first.
Like usually in a case like that, there'll be like the credits, they'll show like the main stars, then there'll be the post-credit scenes, and then it's like cinematography, like all of the rec catering and all that. But this one was literally just the full set of credits twice.
And I don't know if they did it as a joke. And if it was intentional as a joke, it was one of those jokes that like they were committed to, because you have to sit through 5 minutes of credits again, and the joke doesn't get any funnier.
I literally think that it was just to make the movie longer than 80 minutes so that they could sell it to a distributor.
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's the only that, and that's the reason why it's not cut down any more than it. I mean, they literally used every frame of footage that they shot for this movie.
That makes a lot of sense. The entire movie, I felt like this was what was left on the chopping room floor. Like it didn't feel like an edited movie. It felt like all the scraps left behind of a movie.
Right.
So you remember when Anchorman came out, and then they were able to create an entire second film from everything that was cut from Anchorman?
Yes.
That's like this movie, but we only got
the
sequels.
cuts.
Like it's kind of like what I don't know if this is a real term or not, but like what I would think of would be called assembly footage is when you like I was working on a video yesterday where I just kind of imported all of the raw footage and I sort of put it in the order that it's going to go. I haven't gone through and actually edited it together yet. I've just sort of assembled the framework for where I need it to go. And they were like, oh, I guess we're done. We've hit 80 minutes. We might as well sell it.
Look, Ma, a movie.
There was another moment that I really... So as this movie unfolds, our dad and son PI team go look for this girl. There's also another private investigator doing something, but I'm not sure what he is doing.
Yeah, I mind mapped this movie. I figured it out. So the second private eye team was hired by the stepfather to find the girl, because she goes missing because she doesn't want her creepy soon-to-be stepdad to steal her money. So he hires that private eye firm to track her down. And then our Hugh, the protagonist, was hired as a private eye to also find the girl independently by her real father, Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams, the Unabomber.
Right. Who is in this movie, I would say, conservatively... Mark, what would you say?
2 minutes? Like, that's if you count the bombs that he's setting off. Like, he's not in it for definitely not more than like 3 minutes.
But he is listed as one of the producers.
Executive producer.
Executive
because
producer.
I thought, well, it makes
he
sense
put
that
some
they
money
had
in.
like...
I mean, that... Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
It dropped out for a second.
Yeah, the executive producer is just somebody who put some money towards it.
But it surprised me that like usually like it would make sense if he wasn't the executive producer and they're like, hey, Dan Haggerty, we have $40 and Dynamite. Can you spend a couple hours and we'll film you and that sort of thing. But like to be in the producer part and barely be in your own movie, I thought was very strange.
I'm wondering if they did that in order to help entice him, and then they were like, we'll give you an executive producer credit and you'll get some royalties.
And that way they could sell it under his name as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that does speak to this director's MO seems to be spending a good chunk of change on one recognizable name and then building a movie around that.
That's right,
that's almost,
because it was
Tom Baker in Back Time.
Wow, you're right. Stephen Miller, we've underestimated you again.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. We need to find him down. I'm hoping, because I'm going to put this, I'll put this full movie on the Portland at the Movies YouTube page. So for people who would like to watch it, and again, I'm hoping it triggers some sort of copyright flags so we can actually hunt down Stephen Miller and give him a crown of achievement from Portland at the Movies.
And then one day we have to add in there too. It will be available at Movie Madness when we can leave the house again.
That's right. That's right. All three of his trilogy, the Miller trilogy, the Miller.
They're gonna have to add a Stephen Miller shelf at Movie Madness when we get done with them.
Absolutely.
Well, a shelf that holds 3 movies. There was another. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say I picked up on another director trademark in this film. And that seems to be the idea of a silent sidekick type character. Remember we had Zymo, the small person in the Back Time?
Hashtag what is Zymo?
In this movie, we get the silent junkyard attendant.
Oh, that's
we
right.
Do. Yeah.
Who also acts as somewhat of a comic relief.
He does, yeah.
Yep.
So Dan Haggerty's bomber character works at a junkyard, and at the junkyard, there's like this other huge bearded guy who does not speak. That's right. And they treat him like he's like an animal, kind of, because when when our dad, private investigator, comes to look for Dan Haggerty, the junkyard helper, is just staring blankly at a television and like doesn't understand when the PI is like, can you turn the TV off or down? And he's just like, It was so weird.
You know you're watching a Stephen Miller film when...
We could add this to the Movie Madness is a little card, like the tropes of Stephen Miller.
Gosh, this movie, when this movie works, it really works. And when it's not working... it does not work.
It does. I'm looking back at my notes, and there's a scene in a plasma donation center where we kind of open up the scene on this guy that looks like Hall from Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh man, is it going to hurt? He's like concerned about the pain or whatever. And then a fight breaks out between the private investigators and someone, I don't even know who, but like the tables get pushed over at the plasma center, and then they literally have a food fight but with blood bags, which was amazing.
I've never seen anything like that in any film ever.
It was wonderful. I mean, it was like a good old-fashioned pie fight, like blood bags.
It was a water balloon blitz with blood bags.
Blood bags.
So there was almost more blood in that one scene than like in Evil Dead.
There was a lot of blood.
It was so great. And they threw a guy out the window and like actually did like a broken window thing. And so they paid for that, which I thought was pretty great. And then at the end of the blood fight, the runaway girl holds everybody at the plasma center at hostage and like points the gun at their head, and they all cover their head. And then she points it down at their crotch, and they all cover their crotch. And they do that like 4 times, and that got me to laugh too. I thought that was hilarious.
And then she tells everyone in there, put your hands in your pants.
Yeah.
Like instead of putting your hands above your head, no, it's put your hands inside
your pants.
Which was great.
Hop like
yeah,
a
that
bunny.
whole scene was insane.
Yeah.
Watching that scene, I couldn't help but think, like, it's a good thing this was not set at the donation bank from Frozen Assets. It would have been a very different water balloon fight.
Ooh.
Oh, boo. Yeah, so we keep saying it, but there are nuggets in here that are good, and the acting is good, and it's just a shame it was taffied out to this length.
When it was really boring, those terrible improv scenes, to me, it had very much of a Homer and Eddie vibe. That's what I felt like I was watching.
Wow, a damning condemnation if there ever was one. That a movie has Homer and Eddie vibes to it.
I feel like a lot of the vibe was driven by the soundtrack. Can we talk about the soundtrack for a little bit?
Yep.
It was nonsensical at points. That the style of music was many times like a calliope from a carnival, but that wasn't the vibe on the screen.
And I think a lot of that it was just music that they could use. But I will note that when I posted this on YouTube, the YouTube copyright robots flagged me for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs, all of which 6 of which are by Paul DeLay, who I don't know, and one guy named Chris Marshall. So I have a feeling he is friend of filmmaker Paul DeLay, because that's all the music that was used.
So that's entirely what they did in this movie, and we've seen this in other films too, where the director knows somebody who has a band, and then they just let that entire band be the soundtrack for the film. And in the credits, it says music by the Paul DeLay Blues Band.
Oh, there we go.
Wow.
But yes, sound also wasn't great. Like there wasn't a lot of, like, you would have a scene, like the scene in the car wash, for instance, there was no sound. Like the guy gets trapped in his car and then goes through the car wash in the car, and there's like no sound for the car wash. Like you barely hear it. It's like you can kind of hear a washing machine like a block away, and then that's it. So another way that the film just kind of seems unfinished.
I think the music that would have been much better for the blood bank scene, like if they just had the Benny Hill, yakking the sax, that would have been perfect.
Totally. What else? There was another kind of a running joke that started at the beginning where the son says, they're dusting the package that they get with the money and the girl's picture in it at the very beginning. They're dusting it for fingerprints, and the dad, you can tell again they're ad-libbing. The dad's like, and they use the mom's makeup. They dust some makeup on there and use like the brush or whatever from the makeup kit to see if there's any fingerprints. And the kid's like, Dad, Mom said we're not supposed to play with her makeup. And the dad goes, oh, we're not playing with it how you play with it. And the kid says, what you did to or the dad says, we're not playing with it how you play with it. What you did to that bunny. And then it like trails
was
off.
Shameful. What you did to that bunny.
Yeah, and so you're like, what? But then later in the movie, when the son finds the runaway girl at a laundromat, the girl pulls out mace and like threatens with him, and he brings it up again and says something like,
yeah. Mark, do you have access to play the movie?
I don't.
Oh, no, wait, that's not it.
Things keep on crashing on mine.
But says something also about how the mace and the bunny incident. So now we have mace and a makeup and a bunny incident that was shameful. I don't know what to do with that information, but whatever it is, I don't like it.
Well, he talks about there was an incident with fat women in bikinis in the house next door, and they couldn't go outside for a month or
He couldn't mow the lawn. Now, do you think that was the same incident as the rabbit incident?
No.
Okay,
I prefer to think of these as separate incidents, and I like thinking that these incidents are a common occurrence in their life.
Yeah, so the quote, he says the son says there was an ugly incident next door with fat women in bikinis and lard and a tarp. I couldn't mow the lawn after that. Like, what? What is that supposed to mean?
Do you think it was improv?
Well, it had
Has
to
to be.
be. But to bring up the bunny improv twice was weird. Like this lard incident, like that only is mentioned once, so I could be like, okay, he improv'd it there. But I had a feeling this bunny thing was supposed to be some sort of runner in it, which was very disturbing. Could either of you figure out where there's a stakeout and they're parked in what?
Like a
It
curvy
was a really
street.
weird area. Yeah.
I could not.
It looked like the type of street that would be like in a huge cemetery or something like it was a little winding path type road instead of like it seeming like a main street. It was very strange. I'll have to post a picture of that, I guess.
Yeah, it looked like that area above 23rd over by, Cost Plus kind of area. And there's a little,
Yes.
Oh, maybe.
yeah, right in that zone. So there might be
I
something
agree.
kind
That's what
of
it looks like. but I
West Hills
don't
kind
think
of,
it was.
yeah, it wasn't that street, but it was kind of in that vibe.
There was also some overpass that the runaway girl walked over that was all gated and strange. Is that
It
anywhere?
looked like that. It looked like that bridge that we sometimes come across that was in Foxfire.
Over by Goose Hollow?
Yes, that's what I thought.
Oh, maybe.
Huh.
As we all just stare at each other.
Yeah.
Now we're just like three old men on the porch talking about how things. Well, it used to be the old Johnson barn. It used to be the old Foxfire Bridge.
There was I did figure out what the restaurant was. The restaurant scene
Oh.
was Leipzig's Tavern in Selwood, which is no longer there. Now it's an Italian restaurant called Gino's.
Okay. I did wonder, there's also a market that the kid walks in right after they say Selwood, and I think that might be one of the markets in Selwood. And I usually go past that to go to the Goodwill outlet bins, but since I can't go there anymore, I can't confirm or deny that that's the Selwood market. But there was also a big sign in the background of one of the street scenes, and it looked like a sign, a vertical sign that said showroom, and then at the bottom, kind of a horizontal sign that said McCoy. Did any of you recognize where that was? It was like a street scene. I'll have to look up where that was. There was another part that did make me laugh, though. So Dan Haggerty, through this whole movie, wants to kill his ex-wife, who is the runaway girl's mom. And at the beginning of the movie, Dan Haggerty blows up the mom's house and kills the mom's new boyfriend, fiance. And so Dan, I guess, throughout this movie, sets off a couple other bombs. He puts a bomb in the casket of the dead fiance. Was that to kill the mom? Like
The fiance,
I couldn't
yeah.
figure out.
Yeah, he went to the cemetery to do that. He was sitting in the limousine.
Oh, you're right.
And he was watching, and he came to a moment of self-reflection and decided against it, and then threw the trigger out on the grass that then the mourners found, and then exploded we got to keep the explosion and not have any more deaths.
I think I'll end up dropping this in when I edit it, so because it's pretty great. I think I'll drop in some of the improv scene too. But at the end, we find Grizzly Adams on the porch of the Sun, the House of the Sun, to say, look, son, I know you are dating my runaway daughter, and give her these flowers or whatever, and I have a message for her. He says, tell her I'm gonna kill her mom. I hope that doesn't change the way she feels about me. And then he makes the kid repeat it, and the son repeat it, and he is so funny when he repeats back to Grizzly Adams, uh, you're gonna kill our mom. Hopefully she doesn't feel differently or whatever. And he does so good in that, and that little whole scene is so great. And then you hear the answering machine recording of the runaway girl's mom, and the answering machine message says, "I'm not home now because my husband blew up my house. Leopold is dead, so the wedding is off. But if you'd like to go to his funeral,
It's Wednesday.
it's Wednesday," which is so funny.
There was another reference as there was a group getting together with Hugh and everybody, and the Hugh, the private investigator, was meeting the mom, and
Right.
and she's, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, well, you had an explosion yesterday. Well, yeah, I lost all of my laundry. And he goes, "Oh, and your fiance too, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, I lost my fiance as well."
So it was interesting, and we keep saying it, that the performances, especially for a movie of this budget and kind of this caliber, like we've seen so many on our list where the acting is just garbage from everyone. And I think everyone in this movie did a great job with what they were given, and it was such a disservice what happened to their
Just-
performances.
The editor sucked. Whoever. And so,
Did you happen to recognize the funeral home?
I didn't, but if David Walker said that they filmed his part, which was the
cemetery scene.
was the funeral scene up in Battleground, so it could be that was filmed up there.
It looked a lot like the house from Frozen Assets. I'm not saying it was, though.
Oh, you're right. They did. I did mean to. I'll take a screen capture of that and post it to see if anybody knows where that is too. But I did notice that house did seem very reminiscent of Frozen Assets. I wanted to read a little bit more of what David Walker wrote. He said his scene was much longer. He said, "I just remember the sermon I wrote was filled with James Brown and Stevie Wonder lyrics, and I kept saying things like, it says in the Bible that this is superstitious, writing on the wall." I wanted it to sound like total nonsense. So, yeah, and you can hear him in the background because that scene is long. He goes, I figured they would cut it down, but it just keeps going and going. You can just hear him going on and on in the background, and it's pretty great.
Wow, so they did cut stuff from this film.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. There is proof of that. Wow.
So, what sort of rabbit holes did you go down researching this movie online? Did you find any information?
I didn't find much. Oh, and before we get there, the mom did. There was another joke that the mom says about how she was the mom is a marriage counselor at the Birkenstock clinic, which was pretty funny. I just figured because everyone in Portland wears Birkenstocks. I didn't know if there is a Birkenstock one, but I thought that was kind of a funny joke. But I didn't really find any rabbit holes. What did you find, Brian?
Well, at first, let's just say that I think we are the very first people to ever review this movie more than an Amazon or an IMDb review. Like, there is nothing out there in this film.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did, however, stumble down one rabbit hole when I was looking up some of the actors in this film. Did you happen to read the review that was on the Amazon page for this movie?
No, I didn't.
I did.
There is one review, and I'm going to read it to you because it sets up this rabbit hole that I fell down.
Okay.
So on Amazon it says, the title of the review is How I Found My Dream Girl. I first saw this movie soon after it came out 20 years ago. It was a day I'll never forget, not because of anything special about the day itself, but because I instantly fell in love with the co-star, Dana Haikila. Stunned, confused, full of longing for her beauty, but overwhelmed with wanting to protect her innocence, I began a long journey I gave up university, learned how to handle high explosives, grew out my beard, did odd jobs throughout Latin America, Northern Africa, and some places I just can't talk about. I did whatever it took to become the man I thought Dana could love. I did some brave things, some dangerous things. Basically, I was braverous. I also did some things I wasn't proud of. I still have dark dreams of those dark times. The kind of dreams where the bad guys are closing in, but you feel like you're running in 2 feet of glue. You have a gun, but the bullets just bounce off, making them madder and madder. There's also sometimes a penguin.
What?
In the end, though, I realized I could never have her. It was all of a little boy's dream, and I had wasted my life. I'm sure she's 220 pounds with 6 kids living in the woods in Oregon somewhere, but along with my scars, my broken dreams, and my missing digits, I'll always have my fond dreams of her as she was, and she was love and dynamite.
What?
Right?
Written by Dan Haggerty.
So, I went on...
What in the world could that possibly mean?
Like, after watching this movie, like, how would you be inspired to write that? Like,
Does
yeah,
he...
have...
Go ahead.
He had a different experience than we did, let's just say that.
Did he write any other reviews? Does he have an account that you looked into? Who is this person?
Let's see.
If
what
this
did you
truly
find?
is the only review he's ever made, he is a psychopath.
6 total reviews.
What movies? Please tell me.
Let's see. Other purchases he has reviewed include a telemetry module number 2, lithium-ion batteries, connect. I don't know what that is. Product no longer available. Samsung 32 gigabyte micro SD, a laser pointer, and Love and Dynamite.
What?
So you said you went down a rabbit hole. Did you find anything about this?
Yes. So I was really curious what that girl ended up. I wanted to see if she did end up 220 pounds with 6 kids. So I did. I started by finding the one time she appeared in Oregon court for a statute of violation of statute 811.100, which was an infraction class B speeding ticket, where she apparently went to jail and was released on $110 bail.
When was that? What year?
That was in 1987.
Okay, so that's before this movie. A youthful indiscretion.
Mm-hmm. But then I found out she got married, and once I found her married name, oh boy, did I find out what career she went on to have.
Melania Trump.
She is actually on Spotify, and you can go listen to her right now if you want. She has 36 albums to her name.
What?
Whoa!
And most of them are translations of the same 3 or 4 albums. And her albums have names such as God in Creation, The Fall of Salvation, Christ in His Work, The Word of God, Christ in His Return. And they are interesting.
What genre of music would you say that they are? Is it like...
They're like songs for kids, and they're all about a minute long, and every song title is a question.
Yes.
And she has 6 volumes of the Questions with Answers series. And here are some of the questions that you will have answered if you listen to Volume 1. Who is God? Who made God? Has God ever had a beginning? Will God die? Are there more gods than one? Where is God? These are all the titles of her songs.
Wow. What name is this under?
Sorry. Her name is now Dana Dirksen.
Dirksen.
Correct. And her website is songsforsaplings.com.
Yes, it is.
I grew up with many Dirksens in my Dutch community, so it's quite possibly I'm now related to Dana Dirksen.
But she has an office building right now. Her office is above Chipotle downtown.
Oh, so she is still here in town.
Still working, yeah. Right above
Wow.
Chipotle.
It is possible, well, I guess not right now to have her on the show, but it is possible to have her on her show. Wow. And I mean, I have no complaints about her performance either. She was great. Everybody was good, I thought. Wow. I wonder if she worked with Paul, what was that musician's name? Paul DeLay.
Paul
I wonder if
DeLay.
that's how she kicked off her musical career. Um, wow, that's crazy. But I am still way more interested in that Amazon reviewer. I have like an hour's more worth of questions for that guy.
Maybe that was
How?
her husband.
It could be. That's why he ordered Love and Dynamite after they started dating. He was like looking into her low key. Wow. That is crazy. So it sounds like Hugh Kelso, the main character, the one-armed guy, is also in Visions, which is if we're gonna finish out our Stephen Millergy next month with Visions, we will be seeing him again. So, and then we all stopped talking. Well, so this movie, like I said, I will make it available on our Portland at the Movies YouTube page. So look for it there, or on our Facebook page, if you are interested. I think it is worth scrubbing. It's hard to scrub through though, to like find the good parts, because it's like a treasure hunt.
Without a lot of treasure.
Maybe I can put some time codes in there for like skip to here.
You know, it's 180 minutes.
see.
It's 180 minutes long with 2 sets of credits at the end. Spend the hour, watch the movie, the whole thing.
Yeah, that's true. 80 minutes long, not 180
Oh
minutes.
yeah,
80
whatever.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a 2-hour. This is a Hobbit-sized movie.
No.
So yeah, check it out. I think it's just like in Back Time we said last month. There is so much, not just kind of promise, which I think sounds kind of degrading, but there's so much more here that I think was able to be accomplished. Whereas usually in these movies, we are seeing how incompetent the makers were and how out of depth they were in a lot of things. And I just didn't feel that much about this movie. It's not a good movie. David Walker couldn't even make it through it, he said. But there is the intentionality of some of the things going on in it, I think is really intriguing for someone that only did this 3 times. So any last thoughts on Love and Dynamite starring Grizzly Adams as Dan Haggerty?
I'm interested to see this through the Stephen Miller filmography to its conclusion. You know, we're going backwards. Visions is where he got his start. So I'm really curious to see where he got his start and see how that turned out.
Yeah, and I think this is a step back in quality from Back Time. But I don't know if that's just because of budgetary issues. Like, I just kind of feel like this movie fell apart at the end and it was unfinished and kind of unfunded, is kind of how it felt to me. So I guess we'll see in Visions. I guess I can hold it up here. I have it right on my desktop. So it's got a lady on the front. Everyone can see that.
Wow.
So
A lady.
Let's see who else has. It has J.R. Pella and Tom Taylor, both of who were in this movie. It was the dad and the son. So, and Tom Taylor is one of the writers of Visions. So, Dad is
Technically,
the
they were
writers,
all
so-
kind of writers on this movie. So
It'll be interesting to see if he has one arm in Visions.
Well, that's true. Although, are you positing that he really did lose his arm in that car wash accident?
well, did he lose his arm between those 2 movies?
Maybe.
Yeah.
That would be kind of crazy. That like think of any other actor that like you watch their first movie and you're like, that's an actor I really like. I wonder what else they did. And just like in between the two movies, he's one arm short, I guess.
Oh, that'd have been great. Like Luke Skywalker from
that's what I was gonna say.
Empire Strikes Back. Instead of a scar on his chin, he just shows up with one arm.
But it's barely explained except for a quick flashback and a car wash.
You see a Wampa.
I guess it's all the same. Well, Unipiper, what have you been up to? You've been doing lots with Weird Portland United, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
That's right. We are giving out some money to folks who are keeping things weird during this time of quarantine. You still have 2 days left. If you would like to nominate somebody to win $500, you can absolutely do that by going to weirdportlandunited.org and checking out the details there of our Keep Weird Alive campaign. And then other than that, keep your ears open for bagpipes. I'm still making my way through Portland's neighborhoods on my one wheel and spreading some one-wheeled music while I still can.
Nice. Mark, what about you when you're not hastily trying to put a show together behind the scenes that involves
keep the
three
technology
people?
Going? You and I host the Mark and Toddcast, and we talk about Portland and science-y topics, and our most recent episode is about memory and the Olympics of memory and all of the competitive memory industry. And
yeah, which is really word on the street, which I mean, my parents were big fans of that episode. So, and I could say it was great because I had little to do with that one because it was you just talking all about different ways to improve memory and the Memory Olympics, and it was really interesting. So, yeah, fantastic. That's at markandtalkcast.com. And we will be back, I guess, next month with Visions. We can be heard on Fun Employment Radio. Fun Employment is still doing a show every day during quarantine, and they're doing lots of live Facebook and Instagram events and hanging out and doing all that. So go listen to them. I know everything I've been reading says podcast listenership is way down because it's a commuter activity and no one's commuting. But if you're like me, who podcast is not just a commuting thing, it's nice to have some of this extra entertainment laying around. So go check out Fun Employment Radio. Other than that, I will take you out with something or other at the end of this movie. So thank you for listening. We will see you guys next time.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.